Okay, so the second religion that you will be learning about this week is the religion of Buddhism. This is a symbol that is commonly associated with Buddhism. This is called a Dharma wheel, and a Dharma wheel has 8 spokes. Those 8 spokes are going to stand for something called the Eightfold Path, which we will learn about in just a little bit. So while you're completing this slideshow, either while you're watching this video or on your own when this video is done, you're going to want to do very similar to what you did with Hinduism. And you're going to want to pull up this Buddhism chart and fill it out as you work your way through the slideshow, as if I was in front of you teaching and we were taking notes and discussing. So moving back, when we talked about Hinduism, we said you couldn't really narrow it down to one specific person. It probably came in with the beliefs of the Aryans. With Buddhism, you can trace Buddhism back to one person, Siddhartha Gautama. He became known as the Buddha, but he is considered the founding leader. He was a prince and he lived in the 500s BC. He left his family to find a way to stop suffering. He was actually a Hindu prince, but he wasn't satisfied. When he went outside the palace walls, legend has it, he saw people suffering for the first time really in his life, and he became very upset with it. And so he went out to try to figure out the answer to that question. Why do people suffer, and how can that suffering be stopped? So he eventually became known as the Buddha, which means the enlightened one, because Buddhists believe that he achieved a state of great wisdom and figured out the answer to that question of suffering. Followers of Buddhism would be called Buddhists. And you'll see in the picture, these are Buddhist monks in the top picture, but just, again, like any religion, right? Anyone can follow this religion. You would just be called a Buddhist. It began in India during the 6th century BC, which would be the 500s. So Buddhism kind of grew from Hinduism to an extent. It is currently practiced all over the world, like every religion. However, you're going to see a high population of Buddhists living in countries like China, Japan, Thailand, Vietnam, and so on. So really a lot in Asia and in Eastern Asia. So again, this religion also spread like all of the other world religions that we've talked about through diffusion. And really there was a man, Emperor Asoka, who we'll talk more about next week. He really worked to spread Buddhism by sending missionaries to teach Buddhism throughout Asia. The place of worship for Buddhists would be in something called a stupa that could be shaped like a bell, or a temple. Sometimes it's layered like this, like a layered pagoda, but really just a temple or a stupa. And again, I'm sorry, I misspoke in the last slide. The temples could be stupa shaped like a bell, or pagoda shaped. So it's a temple. They could be shaped 2 different ways. A Sangha is a Buddhist community of monks, nuns, and others who help maintain that community. And these would really just be leaders within the religions. The sacred writing for Buddhists is something called the Tripitaka. And the Tripitaka is really just a lot of writings that go over the teachings of the Buddha and explanations of those teachings. So some of the beliefs of Buddhism, Siddhartha taught that there was something called a middle way. And what that means is that a life of moderation, where people take only what they need, no more and no less, will get you to this middle way. Buddhists believe that this man was the enlightened one. The word Buddha literally means enlightened one. And they believe that this man understood the nature of life and was a very great teacher. There's something in Buddhism called the Four Noble Truths. These Four Noble Truths state that there is suffering in the world. Number 2, that suffering is caused by people's desire and attachment to physical things, or maybe outcomes. The third of the Four Noble Truths, Buddhists believe that people can overcome that suffering and reach nirvana, which is a state of perfect peace. The fourth of the truths is that suffering can be stopped by people living in moderation and following something called the Eightfold Path. So the Eightfold Path is really a set of right behaviors that Buddhists believe need to be followed to live a good life. If you look at this graphic, the Eightfold Path consists of things such as the right view, meaning know the truth, having right intentions, meaning when you do something, not to have bad thoughts, to have good thoughts going into things, freeing your minds of evil, to have right speech. What that would mean, a Buddhist would believe that you shouldn't say anything that would hurt others, to have right actions, meaning work for the good of others, to have right livelihood, respect your life, enjoy your job, right effort, meaning resist things that are not good, put forth your best effort, right concentration, so practice meditation, practice clearing your mind, and then right mindfulness, so controlling your thoughts and having positive, good thoughts. That would be the Eightfold Path. So again, that's listed out for you right here so that you can add that to your chart. So just to go a little more into detail on some of the Buddhist beliefs, Hindus will also practice meditation, and meditation can be practiced without any religious beliefs. People practice meditation all of the time and aren't Buddhist or aren't Hindu. They just want to practice clearing your mind. Because what meditation involves, it's making your body very still and your mind very quiet. Some meditators will recognize a thought or interruption that occurs and then let it go and try to return to the moment. So really what meditation is just that practice of quiet reflection to clear your mind from distractions. Buddhists believe in reincarnation, just like Hindus. But they want to escape that cycle, right? They want to escape reincarnation. So people may first reach enlightenment by living a life of moderation and following the Eightfold Path. So that would be that first goal, right? Reach enlightenment. And then they may reach nirvana, which is a state of perfect bliss. Enlightenment, the idea of enlightenment for a Buddhist is really just a state in which one is wise and understands the true nature of the world. Nirvana, again, would be that blissful state in which a person has escaped the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. Moderation, not too much of something, not too little. This is a big Buddhist belief, but again, you've probably heard this word. You can live a life of moderation and not be Buddhist. It's a word that is not doesn't have a religious meaning. It's just part of the Buddhist teachings. So often you'll think of moderation when it comes to food, especially if you're looking at these pictures. The plate on the left, clearly way too much. The plate on the right, way too little. Moderation would be just enough, right in the middle. So Buddhism springs from Hinduism. Siddhartha himself was a Hindu prince. But Siddhartha taught that caste doesn't matter. So that social class system that ancient Indians were really locked into, he started to preach that it doesn't matter. And so Buddhists believe that anyone of any caste or any level in society can reach enlightenment and nirvana. Some major holidays, you have Wesak or Vesak. It's a festival of lights, and that celebrates Buddha's birth and enlightenment. There are different branches. There's Theravada Buddhism, Mahayana. And then you also have some Buddhists that follow other religions as well, as including Buddhist meditations and practices in their spiritual practice. So some diffusion of ideas. People who are not Buddhist at all may use some Buddhist practices, like I talked about before, such as meditation or yoga, as part of their own spiritual practice, or part of a non-religious technique to feel healthier, reduce anxiety and stress. And that's really that spread of those ideas. So from here, what you're going to do, you'll click on this link. It's going to bring up just the story of the Buddha. It's going to look like a lot. It's really not a long reading, and it's just going to go a little more into detail on Siddhartha. When you get to the bottom, it'll show you how to pronounce words and so on. So I want you to go ahead and read more about him. You don't have to answer any questions, just read through it. And then you're going to do another quizzes like you did when you did Hinduism. Again, you have to put your real name. Okay, that is very important. Do not put a fake name. I won't be able to give you credit. Do not put some kind of crazy name and make me have to call home. Just put your real name. And I want you to strive to get that 75% or better on the quiz so you can retake it as many times as needed. And that's how you'll get your participation grade in Power School. When you are finished with this, you're going to notice, and I don't have it pulled up. Let me pull up this document for you. You're going to notice the last thing that you need to complete for this week is just a Venn diagram comparing Hinduism and Buddhism. So it's simply a drag and drop where you will drag the blue boxes over to where you think they belong based on what you learned in the slideshows. Please let me know if you have any questions, and have a good week.